谢 Philip 你介绍。Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to join our webinar today. My name is Alan. I am the office director at InGenius Prep of Northern California. So in today's webinar, we will be talking about the early planning for 9th to 11th graders and how to prepare for college application. If you're interested in our webinar and some discussion, you can scan the QR code to join our WeChat group. And if you have any questions during the webinar, you can leave your comments and questions in the Zoom chat box. And after the webinar at about 6:10 p.m., we will also have a Q&A session in Chinese. So if you have any questions for me or for Alex, you can stay here after 6:10. 我们今天讲座后在6:10会有一个中文的 Q&A 的专场。So today we are very excited to have invited Alex Lawrence with us. Alex is the Assistant Dean and Director at UCLA Anderson School of Management, and he received his MBA in Strategy and Operations from UCLA Anderson School of Management, and his Master of Science and Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology and also Drexel University, respectively. So Alex, would you like to say hi to the audiences today?
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and get a chance to speak to all of you.
Asking Alex to take the microphone, I will introduce our company, InGenius Prep, a little bit. So InGenius Prep is an education technology company that offers online college counseling services with top qualities in this industry. We have the world's largest team of former admission officers from top universities in the US. For example, Zach Harris is the former admission officer from Johns Hopkins and Georgia Washington University. Kelly Britt is the former admission officer from Stanford. So they looked through students' applications and participated in the decision-making of admission, just like Alex. Apart from our former admission officers, we have over 75 graduate coaches from top universities. They will work closely with our students, helping them build their application persona and help with their application essays from scratch to perfection. The insights and experience from our former admission officers help us build the curriculum that's cutting edge. This curriculum help our counselors to find the uniqueness of our students and help them stand out during the application process. So here is the admission results of our students this year, which we're proud of. So we have 58 Ivy League offers, 70 top 10 university offers, 150 top 20 university offers, and over 1,000 global offers. So in a nutshell, InGenius Prep students are more likely to be accepted to top universities. Compared with the Harvard and MIT acceptance rates, which are 3% and 4% this year, our InGenius Prep students' acceptance rates account for 18%, which is very high. And for the other universities like U Chicago, WashU, NYU, etc., the acceptance rates are even higher. So now I will hand the microphone to Alex. And Alex, you can start your webinar and I will stop the screen sharing.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Okay, so again, I'm really excited to be speaking with all of you today about basically what it takes to put together a competitive application for the top universities. And we're going to talk about how applications are processed, the goals for students in the admissions process, strategies for 9th to 11th graders. We're going to talk about the essential background information regarding applications to US colleges and the Common App, the actual process by which applications are reviewed, debated over, and chosen for admission or rejection. I'll talk about some of my experiences being in those committees, the importance of diversity and identifying those factors which make you diverse, and the application persona. I'm sure many of you have heard that phrase before. It's something which is essential if you want admissions officers to remember you, advocate for you, and ultimately accept you. So throughout today's presentation, I'm going to be asking some questions or about topics or items that you may have thought about or you've heard about. So the first one being a true or false, schools have an algorithm to determine who is accepted or rejected, true or false. And while I can't see any of your hands, I would imagine that many of you are sort of wondering, I don't know. That actual answer is that it's false. Most schools use a process of a holistic review in which individual admissions officers assess every part of the application. And again, we're going to be looking at what does that actually mean. But first, let's take a look at some top universities that I'm sure many of you have heard of before. Stanford, Harvard, USC, Emory. Here on their websites, they talk about what type of individuals they're actually looking for. When you look at Stanford, they say we review applications holistically, focusing on academic excellence, intellectual vitality, and personal context. Harvard, they're looking for people who will be the best educators of one another and their professors, individuals who will inspire them during their college years and beyond. University of Southern California, or USC, they're looking for students who possess the potential to contribute to our diverse and vibrant campus life, who represent a vast array of interests and passions, and are leaders unafraid to speak up. Emory, they're looking to challenge one another to be the best that we can be. And we're looking for students who will make a positive contribution to this dynamic community. I want you to take real attention by looking at those words that are in bold text there. Again, these are all fantastic universities. That information in bold is really extremely important to be mindful of in terms of what kind of individuals the schools are looking to admit. Now, do you know how applications are actually reviewed in the admissions office? Many times people just think that, oh, they'll look at the application, maybe only one person looks at it, maybe several people. Well, in general, how applications are processed is once you submit your application, and for the best universities in the country, the admissions office adds it to their pile of thousands of applications that they receive. The applications are separated often by region. Each admissions officer gets a pile of those applications. They review all of the materials in their pile and select a handful of those that they want to accept. And then that admissions officer comes back to a committee. And that's where a lot of the hard work in terms of advocating for the best of the lot that they've received, that they're wanting to really advocate in terms of admitting and thinking that individual will be a great person to the university. I've sat in some of those committee rooms where the number have included 10, maybe even up to 20 different people. And you would be amazed at some of the incredible stories, the different profiles, the experiences, but most importantly, what really impressed that admissions officer? Why are they advocating for that particular individual? What's different about, say, the Chinese admissions offices is that computers evaluate strictly numbers, but like I mentioned earlier, US admissions officers use a holistic review. They're emphasizing how many people, I really want to emphasize how many people actually work in the admissions office. And with that large number, like I said, anywhere is up to 30, they are really trying to take the best of the best applications that they reviewed, hundreds, thousands of them, and then coming to the committee to advocate for those. Typically, say in a stack of, say, 10,000, 20,000 applications, an application usually has about 10 pages each. So you're talking about over 100 to 200,000 pages, that for many times officers are trying to sift through the information and see which are the best students that they want to advocate to the committee. Now, what I really want you to have as a takeaway, if you don't make an impression on the admissions officer assigned to your file, he or she will not advocate for you. As a result, you will not be admitted. One of the reasons why so many Chinese applicants fail to get into US schools is that they don't understand the nature of the American admissions process. Again, it's a holistic process. Unlike Chinese universities where grades and Gaokao scores are essentially the only factors which determine whether someone is admitted, in US admissions decisions are based on a holistic assessment of applicants. In the US, grades and test scores are just one part of that whole equation. Applicants are not rejected or accepted solely based on their grades and test scores. They're important, but there are literally hundreds of other different variables. Another part that I want to talk about are goals for students in the admissions process. So how do you make a great impression? How do you stand out? When you look at all of the materials that the students will be submitting, letters of recommendations, community impact, your unique experience, achievement, specific unique academic interests, all of that are important items to make sure that you keep in consideration. You have to show academic excellence, personality and characters, diversity and focus, and codification as well. And the reason, which is something that many Chinese students fail to understand in terms of all of these things are very important. That means once you've hit, say, a certain test score, getting a higher score will not significantly improve your chance of admissions in the standardized test scores. For example, there aren't any admissions officers that care about the difference between, say, a 2300 and a 2400. At that point, the rest of the student's application is really what matters. Threshold scores are somewhat at or slightly above the median. International students should err on the side of slightly above because those students tend, in general, to have higher scores. You'll note that I want to make mention that people tend to think differently of what diversity really means. They think of it too narrowly. They think being diverse means being part of a minority, racial, ethnic group. In reality, diversity encompasses an almost unlimited range of characteristics in the context of admissions. And US colleges, diversity is anything special about an applicant. That is something which is unique or special about that applicant, which will allow him or her to contribute something different to the classroom, campus, and eventually the alumni network of that school. And I can't emphasize enough how important, why US colleges are so big on diversity. They want different perspectives. They want people coming in with different backgrounds. And that just is going to lead to better discussions in the classroom, among the community, more thoughtful analysis, and greater peer-to-peer learning. Now let's talk about academic excellence. Maybe you are the international humanitarian or the fitness fanatic or the astronomy prodigy. What's important is that the persona being something which summarizes your main attraction, your hook for schools. So what are the hard academic factors considered in admissions decisions? Strength of the curriculum, grades in all courses, grades in college placement courses, the admissions test scores, SAT, ACT, the SAT subject tests. Having great GPA and test scores is not enough. You really need to stand out. Chinese students do not spend enough time on their applications. They may only focus on test scores and grades. Sadly, admissions officers aren't just looking for test scores and grades. They are looking for impressive standout people. While these statistics suggest that Chinese applicants do not devote enough time to properly writing the application, is greatly harming their test scores. However, again, you must exceed, do excellently in all areas, especially in the academic excellence piece. When you look at, say, this threshold of grades and test scores, you see a graph here. Some say that many Chinese students fail to understand is that this means that once you've hit a certain score, getting a higher score will not significantly improve your chances of admissions. I mentioned that earlier. These threshold scores that I described earlier, you should err definitely on the side of getting slightly above because those students tend in general to have higher scores. So a key takeaway that I want you to consider, again, great GPAs and test scores are not enough to guarantee admission. They are only two of many important academic related factors. You need to really stand out in all different areas. When you look at academic excellence, again, it is crucial. Above all else, colleges are academic institutions. They want to see that you will take advantage of resources like writing centers, labs, seminars, study abroad opportunities, and more. Have and express an opinion in your classroom settings. They want to make sure and see evidence that you're going to contribute positively to the classroom and academic community, and that you can handle the coursework. Let's take a look, an example of a student. Here is Maya. What does academic excellence look like? You see she has a 4.0 GPA, a high SAT score at 1520. She took the most challenging AP classes and coursework available at her school, took additional science courses at Yale University as a high schooler, works in a research lab, works as a teaching assistant at her high school as well. So again, this is a great example of someone who took advantage of all the resources at her school at the highest levels and excelled in those, but then not just in the classroom as well. Took advantage of the resources, did some activities outside the classroom as well. Talk about diversity and focus. Again, people sometimes have a very narrow focus or a definition of what diversity is. Diversity is crucial. You must have something which differentiates you from other applicants. Diversity is anything special about a student which will allow him or her to contribute a unique perspective. Diversity is what makes you stand out. That piece alone, in addition to others, is really going to make sure that the admissions officer remembers you for everything that you've done inside the classroom as well as outside. Again, examples of diversity: race, ethnicity, religion, things you cannot control. A unique academic interest, say French literature, unusual or uncommon extracurricular activity, starting a business or nonprofit. Some of the best experiences in terms of applicants that I remember looking at are those students who took their passions, something that they were really committed to, and again, maybe started a business. Maybe they did some things that they were writing a blog about, or they've even done a podcast. Something, again, that really combined with all the other aspects of their application really made me think that, hey, here's a very unique person who's going to add some value, add some definitely to the community of that particular university. Again, I mentioned before how universities are big on diversity. They want individuals who are come from different backgrounds, have different thought processes, perspectives, so that when they come into the classroom, they can share those experiences, those opinions, give a more thoughtful analysis, and each person could be learning from each other and have greater peer-to-peer learning. So here again is another one of those true or false. You should have as many interests, passions as possible. Well, the answer is false. You should uniquely excel in one or two areas. And reason being is that, the takeaway is that you don't want to be well-rounded, be lopsided and unique. Some people have asked me in the past, is it better to have a lot of different activities? For some admissions officers, that really could sort of confuse them in terms of what were you really trying to achieve? What is your interest in? If the admissions committee is going to remember your application, you have to have a diverse and focused interest. Again, uniquely lopsided, so more narrow than just trying to do everything that you can possibly do. They'll need to be able to summarize what distinguishes you in just a few words. Don't forget that when they go to that room, that committee where they're going to be advocating for you, they, again, won't have a long time to advocate in many instances. I've seen pitches of specific candidates anywhere from 1 minute to up to 10 minutes. It's not a lot of time to talk about all of your great accomplishments. So being narrow is definitely a way to go. Be lopsided and unique. So again, what is an application persona? I mentioned that earlier. We call these words the application persona. Your application persona is the common thread that ties together everything in your whole application. It is the organizing principle and central theme. Your application persona isn't an accident. It's a decision that's many years, that takes many years in the making. It's a decision that is made years in advance. Your application persona serves two purposes: memorability and persuasiveness. Now, again, diversity and focus. Let's go back to Maya. What does diversity and focus look like in her persona? Does not attend a competitive or private high school, unique academic interests, chemical engineering or agricultural sustainability, conducts science experiments under her kitchen table, works as a science museum interpreter, started many scientific outreach programs, team leader for award-winning science projects. So a lot of different activities, but still a focused area of interest, anywhere from the experiments that she's conducted to her activities working at the Science Museum. Hopefully you can start seeing that thread, that focus, that area. Now let's talk about codification. So trivia time again. What is the wrong way to tell the admissions office that you're really good at math? Here we go. You have some choices here. Get strong math scores on your SAT, ACT, and transcript. Tell them you love math and are good at it. Work as a math tutor, conduct math research, win math awards. What is the wrong way to tell the admissions office that you're really good at math? Well, B, tell them that you love math and are good at it. Why? What evidence do they have? They probably won't believe you, okay? So that's why you have to showcase your knowledge, your experience, your activities, your passion for that in a variety of different ways, other than just telling people that you love math and you're good at it. Now, here are some other areas to consider. You know, again, get strong math scores on the SAT, ACT, and transcript. This shows them that you have a strong grasp on mathematical concepts. Tell them you love math and are good at it. Well, this tells them that you're good in your own biased opinion. You know, option C, work as a math tutor. This shows them that you are good enough at math to teach it to others. Conduct math research. Well, this shows them that you like math enough to do it outside of the classroom, okay? Winning math awards. This shows them that you are better at math than other students. So here, again, clearly you can hopefully see that there's a reflection of the work that's done inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom that really conveys your interests, your reasoning why you can answer the question, you know, that you're really good at math. Now, how do you show but not tell? Well, again, codify experiences. Take a regular passion and interest or hobby and turning it into something that's tangible that admissions officers will understand and value. You know, take that passion, that hobby, that interest, that skill, and showcase it in many things I mentioned earlier, whether the outcome is an award, a certification, the experience itself, a credential, a title, or product. Some of the best applications also that I've read before talk about having an interest in business, economics. Individual created a company where they did sell some items online. They can talk about that experience and the need for the college experience that helped them understand what does it take to build a business, to run it, market it, etc. You know, anywhere that I also talked about some students who have taken their passion to actually writing blogs or even creating a podcast about it. Again, you want to take that and showcase those experiences to connect your passion to those outcomes that you see. Now, also, you know, passion for and interest in STEM, looking at Maya, again, look at some of what she was able to show from an experience standpoint. She submitted research for publication, entered the Intel Science Competition, does scientific research outside of school, applied for a scientific research opportunity, teaches and tutors science. So again, you can see how she turned that passion for interest in STEM and actually has some tangible experiences to point to in her application. Now let's talk about impressiveness. For the most competitive universities, impressiveness is crucial. You must wow the admissions office. You have to get that hook that really is going to grab their focus, their interest, and help them continue turning the pages on your application. Impressiveness is anything about which a person on the street, when told of the achievement, would say, wow. Impressiveness is important because it helps students truly stand out in ways that being just quite good doesn't allow. Examples of impressiveness: winning a national, international competition, getting recruited at the collegiate level, sports, STEM, music, publishing research, doing a competitive internship, working with a professor, getting a high class ranking, being an expert in your area of interest. Just again, to give you another example, I've seen a lot of students over the past year and a half take advantage of some of the opportunities that, because of the virtual environment, being able to work with professors at different universities on different research projects. So that's something, again, to consider from the standpoint really following your passion as early as you are in this process of thinking about college. That's something you can carry over because of the ability, especially in the virtual environment, to work with people, not necessarily just restricted to your local area. But beyond that, another list of some great examples of, again, to get that wow factor, that impressiveness, that you're really going to get that admissions officer to be like that person on the street and say, wow. Now, let's go back to Maya. You know, what does impressiveness look like? Valedictorian, she was ranked #1 in her class, 2-time finalist and 4th place winner at the Intel Science Fair, a gold medalist at the iSweep Environmental Science Fair, winner of many science awards at the state level, completed a prestigious internship at the Yale School of Medicine. Remember I mentioned earlier how she had worked at Yale University during the summer, started a TEDx talk series. Wow. Published articles in the regional newspaper. Wow. Again, shows hopefully that you can see how her impact, some of her activities are a lot broader. One, at the school level, her high school level, but then even broader than that, beyond just her high school, in her neighborhood and farther. Now let's talk about personality and character. Don't forget to be likable. Be someone who admissions officers, classmates, and professors would want to grab a coffee with. Be someone who would be a pleasure to room with or have a class with. Be someone who cares about the world and the community. In my experiences, especially when students have a chance to meet different admissions officers, having a pleasant disposition, having a likable character goes a long way. Things that you want to avoid, some traits is arrogance, entitlement, privilege, selfishness, sarcasm, dishonesty, inauthenticity. And a lot of these, you know, again, you definitely want to avoid, because admissions officers or any school official that you would be in contact with, if you displayed any of these traits, many times admissions officers, they may remember that, they may remember you for a variety of reasons, and sometimes just reading that in your application. So you have to avoid that, because many schools, many universities want to admit people to their program, to their classes, to be part of their networks, where many of these traits that are shown here are definitely not evident. So examples of personality and character: someone who gives back to the community, acts with a purpose, gets strong letters of recommendation that talk about many of these personality character traits that I mentioned earlier, develops meaningful relationships. That's really huge. Shows growth and potential, positively impacts others. You know, all of these are great examples, and there's more. I think many times, sort of what I've read in applications, that many of these traits, they just come up, they bubble through many of the materials that you would submit. Again, the letters of recommendation, the community service activities that students participate in, the personal statement. So these are the ones that are going to resonate with a lot of the top universities, even the ones that I did showcase earlier. You know, definitely think about how you can have your personality and character shine through your application. So again, let's look at Maya. What does personality character look like? Thoroughly enjoys community outreach, started 3 scientific outreach initiatives, volunteers at local science center, helps others as a science and math tutor, director's assistant for school marching band. Her teachers couldn't wait to write her letters of recommendation. Wow. Showed personality in her essays, like I mentioned earlier. Again, acting with a purpose. So many of these, it shows that she has a meaningful relationship, has growth and potential. So consider these again as just some examples that I'm sure many of you have displayed or definitely should showcase in your application. Now, as the end result, Maya got accepted to Yale, restrictive early action, great application. You saw all those meaningful qualities, activities that Maya did participate in. So really, this does show you, and a lot of this information that you should definitely consider as you're building your profile, thinking about activities to do before you actually apply to college. Now, let's look specifically at strategies for 9th to 11th graders, okay? So how should you plan out your 4 years of high school? What should your goals for 9th and 10th grade look like? Well, action points for all 4 years of high school, no matter what grade you're in. You want to strategically select courses based on your academic interests and strengths. Take core classes all 4 years. Challenge yourself academically by taking the most rigorous courses. I can't emphasize that one enough. Universities, admissions officers, they want to really see how you challenged yourself by taking the most difficult courses possible, honors courses, those for AP classes, and really, again, challenging yourself and excelling as well. But then also getting involved in extracurricular activities. Early on, what you'll see, especially when we start looking at the 9th grade goals and action points, you'll see how that's supported. But again, you want to take on leadership positions in your clubs and activities. Just don't be a member of those clubs. Initially, yes, but take on leadership positions as you develop, especially as you sort of narrow your interest areas. Find ways to spend your summers productively. Reflect on what you might want to study in college, and get to know people who could become your future recommenders. It's never too late or even too early, I should say, it's never too early to start networking, building a rapport with your teachers or even some of the extracurricular officials, because in most cases, some of those individuals, especially if you built a relationship, a strong, meaningful one early on, they would be more willing to even write you a letter of recommendation, just like you saw in Maya's profile earlier. So now 9th grade goals and action points. Here's another one of those quizzes. True or false, you should only participate in one specialized extracurricular in the 9th grade. What do you think? Well, false. You should join a few different activities and clubs to figure out the ones that interest you the most. I know from my own personal experiences a long time ago, that is something that I definitely did. I wanted to try a few things because you know what happens when you do sort of look and participate in, say, a sizable amount of activities. You start figuring out what you like and what you don't like. So, but the most important thing is that you'll start to figure out the ones that interest you the most, and then you can continue on that in your academic studies, in your academic career there in high school. So goals for the 9th grade: explore, join a few clubs that appeal to you to find out which ones you can really commit to and take charge of in the years to come. Like I mentioned earlier, taking on some leadership positions. Plan courses early. Be intentional about what you choose and take advantage of any flexibility provided by your school. Practice good study habits. Adopt positive habits such as using flashcards, making study guides, and participating in class. That is, again, another important thing that I can't stress enough, where, especially when you get at college, participating in the classroom is going to be a part of your grade in many instances, but also a great way to engage the professor. So start early, do that in the classroom, participate in the classroom, making those study guides, using those flashcards more. And then meet with your guidance counselor. Get to know your high school counselor to establish a strong relationship early in your high school career. It's going to allow them to get to know you better. And then as you develop that relationship and start asking questions, they can provide even more customized information for you to consider with respect to different extracurricular activities, summer programs to consider, and then ultimately the universities of interest. Create a master resume. Add your activities, accomplishments, leadership positions to your resume to keep track of everything you do in high school. Trust me, this once you start a resume, it's going to be something that you constantly modify, edit, no matter how long you've been in school, high school, college, or even after you graduate in the workforce. But starting early, because then you can start really seeing which activities mean the most. Also, it's a way to list your accomplishments as well, and you'll find out that this material alone will definitely be applicable to your college application when you do apply at that time. Now, tips for adjusting to high school academics. You want to stay organized, write down your schedule, keep an agenda with your assignments, maintain separate notebooks, binders for each subject. I have worked with countless number of students, some who are very organized and some where it's a struggle. I can tell you that having that schedule written down just helps organize, because students, you take so many classes and you're involved in so many great extracurricular activities, not to mention a social life, that having a schedule, something that helps you keep organized versus trying to remember everything, it's going to help you so much in the long run. So, and then that part about an agenda with your assignments, again, the best students that I've worked with have been able to plan things out, because many times you'll find out there'll be a lot of conflicts, whether it be multiple exams on one day, homework assignments due, whatever that may be. But hopefully planning things out on a schedule will allow you to best use your time wisely, especially when you start working with groups. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're having trouble keeping up in class or want to discuss a topic further, ninth grade is an ideal time to start getting to know your teachers, like I mentioned earlier. And then don't slack off. It can be easy to get distracted. Stay on top of your schoolwork early so that you don't lose focus in later months. As you will find out, and many of you know probably already, as you get further and further into your ninth grade year, there's more assignments, there's more activities that you can be involved with. The more that you can stay on top of your work, you're going to be finishing the ninth grade in a strong manner. Now, find your passion early. We talked about passion early on. You might not know what your niche is right off the bat, and that's okay. That's what goes back to I mentioned earlier, trying a few different things. As you explore your interests, you can ask yourself some of the following questions. How do you usually spend your free time outside of school? What topics genuinely excite you? What have been your favorite activities so far? Which field would you feel most happy dedicating your time towards? Does a topic want to make you learn more? That one I think is really big, because I think that's what ignites your passion even more, where you want to explore maybe other channels of learning, maybe videos, reading, attending events, participating in a specific club at your school. That part of the learning process, that part of the passion, that is just like magic. Do you want to deepen your commitment towards the activity? Remember how we talked about earlier, as you go from 9th to 12th grade, probably your activities that you participate in won't be as large a number as you started off in 9th grade versus in 12th grade. You'll probably start narrowing and go a little bit more deeper into that passion. And then how does the topic or activity relate to your future plans? So that's another one where you can start as simple as something as you like working with electronics, maybe that starts steering towards something in robotics, and later on maybe into artificial intelligence or AI. Again, you don't necessarily have to know what your passion is right off the bat, but try a few things and that's okay. But then think about these questions to help you really start to narrow down and focus on what does really excite you? What is your passion? Here are some tips for selecting your ninth grade courses. Explore, since you're just getting started, this is the time to take classes that sound exciting, try new courses and discover where you succeed. Think about your interests. You're more likely to perform better in subjects that you enjoy. Showing prowess in your choice of field can help demonstrate your dedication to colleges. And then, prioritize your high school protocols. Your high school may require you to meet certain requirements in order to graduate. See if you can get these courses out of the way early so that you can explore some of those other interests that I mentioned. Now, okay, so, again, tips for selecting your ninth grade courses will also include outlining your goals. Do you have any target classes you want to reach, such as calculus? How do you know, what do you need to do now to get there? Maybe there are some prerequisite courses that you have to take in order to eventually take calculus. Ask upperclassmen for advice. They've been there, they've done it, right? Your friends, your siblings in grades ahead of you can give you some advice. Reach out to them for some tips on how to make the most of your freshman year. And then again, consider university requirements. Most universities have set course requirements. For example, 4 years of English, they expect applicants to meet. Look at these ahead of time before choosing your ninth grade classes so that you don't fall behind later. Your summer planning, take advantage of your summer after your ninth grade to continue your interest, exploration. Remember Maya, how she participated in some activities at Yale University. Often the most competitive summer programs don't allow ninth graders to apply. So this break can be a bit more flexible, but make sure you take advantage and see which ones do allow you to do that after your ninth grade. Then some other options for the summer include a job, internships, volunteering opportunities, college summer programs, and starting your own projects such as a podcast or blog. Here's that podcast and blog idea again. Now, let's go to 10th grade goals and action points. So in 10th grade, you want to increase your extracurricular involvement. Remember before I was saying that it's okay in the beginning to just be a member of the club, but now start looking for some leadership opportunities if available in the club. You want to find ways to have an impact, maybe even start your own activity if you can't find the perfect fit for you. And then focus your interests. Think about your academic interests and start narrowing your profile. Community involvement, find ways you can volunteer in your neighborhood, school, or regional community. Think about leadership. After exploring for a year, it's time to commit. Consider what you need to do to hold a leadership position in your favorite activity. You don't need to be the president of the club, but holding a leadership position, talking about what you did as part of the club, and then carrying that over to later, maybe the 11th and 12th grade will really show how you've grown. Also, your impact on the club, maybe impact on the community, depending on the club's activities. And then, enroll in rigorous courses. I mentioned earlier about AP courses, so start challenging yourself. Take as many if your school does permit it. Make a standardized test plan. Start preparing and thinking about ways you want to take the SAT or ACT. Work on reflective writing skills. Start practicing early. Essays for college applications are much different from your school essays, okay? So starting early on that reflective piece of it will go a long way, especially as you get feedback on how to improve your writing skills. Capitalizing on 10th grade academics, again, you see the theme, keep taking challenging courses, take AP classes during this time, considering opting for a course such as AP US History and getting it out of the way, thinking about your career choices. As you gain a better understanding of what you want to study, be more deliberate in building your course selection around topics you will continue to pursue in the future. So if science and math excite you, take as many of those science-related courses as possible. I was working with a student who was really interested in computer science. So she had taken a number of physics courses, calculus courses, all of those are great ways to build a foundation, especially in that STEM field. And then, of course, you have to maintain good grades. Keeping up a high GPA is more important than ever. If you struggled in the 9th grade, work hard, bring your grades up. Colleges will appreciate an upward progression on your transcript. Now, early college planning, prepare for the standardized test. 10th grade is the perfect time to take a first stab at the SAT or the ACT. If you get a high score, fantastic. If not, you have enough time to identify weak areas, continue to work at it, re-strategize and retake it. Start thinking about campus visits. Even though it's early, use the sophomore year to start visiting colleges, if possible, to get a feel of what you want out of the experience. It's especially in the US, depending if you want to, say, go to a large university or a small one, maybe in a college town or a big city like New York or Los Angeles. Do you want to be in a cold weather sort of region like Midwest and East Coast, or do you want to be something on the warmer side on the West Coast? There's all kinds of advantages that all these universities have, but you can't really get a good sense of it unless you're actually there, in my opinion. But if you can definitely do the research and actually talk to people who have gone to those universities or schools. But if anything, if you can visit, try to do so. And then attend an information session. If you go on the campus tour, or if there's a college fair in your area, check out a panel or a presentation to start the learning more about the admissions process. All the universities, all the top universities have a number of virtual activities that you can participate in, so it's never too early to start exploring those. Now, here we go again, another true or false. You should take the SAT as many times as you possibly can. What do you think? False. Okay, so admissions officers consider how many times you've taken the SAT. A strong score after 5 sittings isn't as impressive. This makes planning out your SAT test dates all the more important. Okay, again, maybe you don't do so well in the first one. It's okay, take a second test. But once you get up to 5 sittings, then admissions officers start scratching their head, and really, especially if there's not a large improvement, wondering like if you can really achieve at the highest level that the university is looking for. So, tips to avoid the sophomore slump: write down your goals, make short-term and long-term goals for the semester and year, and stick to them. Periodically review them. Form study groups. So valuable. If you're having trouble concentrating in class or studying for exams, try forming a group with your friends. See if that motivates you and improves your performance. And don't forget what I advised earlier, at least for the 9th graders, is that don't be hesitant to ask for help. Okay, there's all kinds of resources at the college level that help students. They want to see you succeed. So, starting that practice in high school wouldn't be a bad idea. And then, of course, reconsider your choices. If you got an activity that's really bringing you down, maybe it's time to drop it. Maybe it's taking too much of your time. Maybe it's not of interest to you. Take a step back, reconsider it. Maybe it's time to move on to something else that maybe is more motivating, more interesting to you, but then also will help you succeed in other, especially your classroom grades and other activities. Now, takeaway: don't be afraid to start challenging yourself as you begin high school. It's a great way. That's the time to explore, start figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Choose courses which both challenge and interest you, and then gear up. Take on leadership roles in your activities, make an impact. That over the last 5 years, I can't tell you how much more and more colleges, their universities, they're looking for, from at the individual standpoint, what impact did you have as part of your activities when you were in high school, whether it be in the classroom, your extracurricular activities, maybe some of your community service work. Don't forget that aspect of it, that, what impact did you make? And then again, start thinking about the college admissions process more concretely. Now, goals for the 11th grade. So again, here's some action points that at least for the 11th grade you should consider. Step up, again, take on leadership roles in your activities, start new efforts through your extracurriculars, look at those standardized tests, start taking them. Take the SAT or the ACT, depending on which best suits your strengths. Take the SAT subject tests. Form a preliminary college list. Use your SAT and ACT score and your GPA as references to see which schools are possible in terms of reach, fit, and safety options for you. Tour the schools. Remember I mentioned that earlier. You can take advantage of some of the online college tour sites. A lot of them have virtual tours. Many schools also have student ambassadors who are willing to answer your questions about what their experience is at, why did they choose to attend that particular university, some of the clubs and activities that they're involved with in some of their clubs, and then just other information that may be of interest to you. Talk to the admissions officers, and ask clarifying questions. What you'll find is that the more homework that you can do before you talk to an admissions officer, that's another way of really standing out by asking those thoughtful, clarifying questions if they may not necessarily be clear to you. Create a common application account. Register on commonapp.org and start filling out your information. Brainstorm for your personal statement. Look through the prompts, start jotting down ideas, and then talk to your recommenders. Set up calls with your teachers and ask them the right recommendation letters for college. If you remember some of the advice in the that I mentioned earlier, is that once you start those, hopefully you've been able to start those relationships as early as, say, 9th grade, and keeping them up to date with your activities. Maybe you really did stand out in that teacher's classroom, so that when that time comes to maybe asking for a letter of recommendation, it's a lot easier to do so. They'll have some great points to focus on in speaking with you or writing about you, and they'd be most happy to do it. So don't hesitate to start setting up those calls when you're in the 11th grade. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Alan. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Great. Thanks so much, Alex. Yeah, I see a lot of comments from the audiences actually. So later we'll be answering some of the correct questions. But before that, I'd like to mention something about our InGenius programs. So our amazing admission results actually come from our excellent programs. The 8th to 10th graders, you can see that we have the candidacy building program, which allows the students to strategize early and build their profile two-on-one with a former admission officer. We call that FAO, and also a graduate coach. We also have the academic mentorship that allows students to contact scholars. The writing program allows students to improve their English reading and writing skills with an Ivy League teaching fellow or writing instructors. The guaranteed internship allows students to some internship opportunities at fast-growing startups and even companies. And we also have the application counselings designed for the rising seniors, which will help them build their applications from scratch to perfection with a former admission officer and a graduate coach. So if you are looking for some individual advice, you can sign up for a free consultation with me. And I have put the QR code here. So by scanning it, you can schedule a free consultation. And if you have any other questions, you can also add me and follow me on WeChat. So this is my personal WeChat information. So now we will open some discuss questions for Alex. So Alex, I will select some questions from the parents and ask you, okay?
Sure.
Great. I can see that the first question is from a parent named Annie, and she's saying that would attending various hackathons be considered as, an advantage during admission?
Yes. So participating in those hackathons is a great way to, again, follow that passion, that interest, and giving an opportunity to have some self-reflection on what that experience taught you as an applicant. So I would definitely encourage that if that is something of interest by the student, then they should definitely participate in those activities, because sometimes they are team-based. especially those working within a group. And that's just another level of experience to reflect on in your college application. Whether you win the event or not, one of the best things is the experience itself.
Okay, yeah, that experience is very important. Okay, before the next question, I see some audience are mentioning that they have missed the first part of our webinar. So if you want to have the recorded videos of our webinar, you can join our WeChat group later. We will share the recorded video afterwards. Okay, the next question is award winning very important for the college application?
So that's a very tricky sort of question. I would say that while, it's nice to win, if anything, a lot of it's more about the experience itself. Not to say that you shouldn't participate and not winning is not important, but definitely participating in some events, especially those that are maybe national based or a little bit larger on a grander scale, is important. And I mentioned before, it's that if you win, definitely let people know about that. But again, I go back to that experience, especially when you write about, if you write about that particular event or activity, that self-reflection part is going to be so important to allow the admissions officer to see what did you gain from the experience, what impact did you have maybe on the other team members as well. And again, the outcome, whether it be you won the event or maybe you didn't. And again, that self-reflection piece.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, just like you mentioned during the codification part, right? So the awards help them to show the admission officers their like achievements, very tangible result, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And also, how important is sport activities in the process? What if the student is not good at any sports?
Oh, wow. Yeah, great question. So sports activities, again, they're just another extracurricular activity, which is great. Trust me, there are plenty of students, applicants who apply to college who never played any sports in their high school experience, okay? So if you're not good at it, that's okay. Maybe it's more a progression, starting in a sport that over the course of your high school experience that you did get better at. But remember I mentioned earlier about maybe there's some activities that are bringing you down. If that is something, a sport that maybe you're not good at, you don't enjoy, but there's another activity, an interest that you do have, focus on that. But again, while some schools, again, will admit students who have played sports, they admit a number of other students who have focused on other sort of activities, maybe the arts, music, other extracurricular activities.
So one of our audience is asking you, does apply for financial aid hurt the chances of their admission?
No, that does not hurt your admission status at all. Okay, so don't feel like that you have to, or you don't have to because you think it's going to impact your admission to the school. That is not the case.
Okay. And how do you select the students for the scholarship? Can I ask these add-on questions? Are there any criteria?
That's great. So I'll just talk in general. Okay, so this is where it's very interesting in the sense that the schools that say, for example, are test flexible, in other words, that you don't have to submit a standardized test score, they may use a standardized test score as part of their financial aid consideration. So how do you find that out? That would be actually going to the individual schools and understanding really what is the criteria on the financial aid side to see that, okay, yeah, standardized test score, ACT, SAT do factor in how their scholarships are awarded. Again, it's school by school dependent. In my experience, some of the schools and some of the admissions programs that I worked with and students applying to different schools, I have seen where from a test flexible standpoint, that did impact their award of a financial aid by not having a standardized test score. But then in other cases I've seen where it didn't have an impact. So you have to really look at the school specific.